Hey guys, welcome back to What He Grows Through, episode 3, My Transition. So, last week we left off of kind of what my teen years consisted of and kind of what that looked like for me. So, we're going to go ahead and transition into, part of my adulthood and when I decided to transition. So, I actually as you probably know from my other episodes, I had came out and said that I was gay, and so at that time I was a girl dating girls, um, and that was up until I was, let's see, I'm 3 years into my transition now, and I'm gonna be 35. So I didn't start my transition until way later on. Um, and with that, a lot of questions came along with that from people that were very close to me and all of that. And so, during my young adulthood and stuff like that, I just figured that I was a lesbian and that was that. I was content with everything and how my life was going and um, dating and all of that. Um, but I always did, picture myself, I guess you would say, more of a masked lesbian. So I was comfortable in, men's clothing or bigger baggy stuff. I didn't like to dress up girly. I didn't like to wear girl clothes. None of that stuff. It just wasn't for me. I wasn't comfortable, and I just didn't feel like myself. And so I was just, short hair, always wearing guy clothes, and it wasn't till later, later on, um, through all of that, that I met my wife now. When I met my wife, um, we first started hanging out, and started dating. We hit it off, and it was in the middle of our relationship that I actually decided to transition. Um, and I think what came with that was that, one, I had um, a lot of friends around me at that time that were also transitioning. So resources and things were available. It was right in front of me. And so it was a lot of things that I actually didn't know myself. But because the resources were so close, I was able to ask questions. And not just that, but I was comfortable asking questions because it was people that I knew and people that I was comfortable with. And so, um, with that, and then my wife also, knowing people that have also transitioned and things like that, resources were just available, for me. So, that's kind of when I started asking questions and really trying to evaluate myself and really with my feelings and being in tune with myself. And um, it was kind of hard at first because I had always like tried to stop and look back on it and see, why I was feeling the way that I was feeling in certain situations. Um, and then when I really analyzed my childhood and um, things like that, and just the way that I was as a person and what I was comfortable with and what made me feel comfortable, it all pointed to um, that I felt like I was in the wrong body, right? Um, now, uh, this was kind of something that I had to take the time to really think about because a transition is huge. Not only is it affecting me, but it's also going to affect others around me. Um, and so I really needed to make sure that I was um, using all the resources that were available and really trying to dig into who I am and who I wanted to be and who I want to become and all of those things. And it was hard to figure out for sure. Um, but I knew in my heart that once I made the decision that it was the right decision. Um, it's funny because I didn't realize a lot of things until I got older. Growing up with my dad and always being, around him and hanging out with him, and I had brothers, and then I had my dad's friends and things like that. I always just felt more comfortable around the guys. I never wanted to play with, girl toys. I wanted to be playing basketball, or I wanted to be out in the dirt, or things like that. And although people looked at it as a tomboy type of thing, but it was something that I genuinely felt comfortable doing. It was something natural to me. um, and it's even funny because when I really looked back on my childhood, I always remembered, my dad when I was younger. Well, he's a guy, he would use the restroom and he would be standing up. Well, I remember as a child that there was times that I did try to reenact going to the bathroom standing up, and um, it was comfortable for me. Now it wasn't something that I remembered or something that like it was like a memory that like stuck with me. It wasn't until I really started trying to like dig into things, right? And I just started remembering all these little things, and I was like, wow, that's um, that's kind of crazy, when I look at it that way, and I'm able to see uh, just little things like that I noticed. And um, so once I kind of figured that out, and it was something that I wanted to do, although I knew I had it figured out and it was something I wanted to do, I um, oh man, I was terrified. Um, Deep down inside, I was excited, and I knew it was something that was going to be new, and I was going to be able to experience all these things that I've always wanted to experience and really feel like my authentic, genuine self. However, I was also terrified. I was terrified about how my family was going to react. I already had came out as, being gay, and at first they didn't take that very well. And I had finally got to a good place as far as relationship with my parents, and them, loving me and accepting me for who I am, regardless of whether they agree with my beliefs or anything like that. They were there for me, but as their child, it was terrifying for me to think that, dang, I once was in that place and I don't want to be in that place again, right? I knew what that felt like, to feel alone and feel like I wasn't being supported, and all of those things. And um, I was terrified of what they would think and if they were going to accept it. And on top of that, I was also terrified of what was going to happen with my relationship, and what that was going to consist of, and how it was going to affect that, and what kind of obstacles were we going to have um, in our relationship once I decided to transition. Now, um, if there's one if there's one thing that I'm super grateful for, it's that um, I got lucky enough to have a partner um, accept me for me, right? There's never been a question of not accepting me for who I am and who I want to be. And my wife, man, she's been nothing but supportive, and has just been there the whole time, riding by my side. And it's crazy to think that, even though my transition was hard on her, she still stuck by my side. And that's something I'm super grateful for. it's not something that's very common, I guess, that everybody has. Um, and I personally can't say, I don't know, what that would feel like or how that would be, not having the support system that I do have. And that for that I'm super grateful, and for you guys that are listening that don't have that support system. I know that that can be hard. um, I know what that feels like. At some point I also felt that way, and it gets better. And one thing that you have to know is that what's most important in your whole entire journey is that you are happy with yourself. You feel your authentic self. Because if there's one thing that I've learned in life, it's that what matters to you is what's most important. You are the one who wakes up every day. You are the one who's living through that process of your life. You're the one who has to go through all of the things that you go through. And at the end of the day, you have your back. And there are going to be lots of other people that you're going to meet and that are going to love you and support you. And you just gotta stick it out, and you gotta stay strong, because the feeling of just being able to be yourself and have others accept you and love you for you is it's an amazing feeling. And so I encourage you guys that are maybe struggling and that don't have a support system and things like that through your transition, as hard as that may be, you just got to stick to it, and just remember that you're doing this for you, and that you deserve this, right? You deserve this more than anybody. You're doing this for you, not for anybody else. And so, yeah, I mean, I was terrified. It was a very scary thing for me. Even though I have a very supportive wife, and that doesn't mean that there wasn't obstacles or there wasn't challenges or any of those things. And with my family, I didn't get the reaction that I guess I was expecting, which is a good thing, because the main reason I was scared was because I was scared of what they would think, right? And if they were going to accept me. And I had already experienced some of those feelings in coming out gay, and when that happened, I didn't like the way that it made me feel. And so I kind of had this PTSD towards that situation, and I was terrified that that same thing was going to happen. But I got a different reaction, and although my parents, I guess they weren't necessarily all for it or didn't really understand it, but they made me feel loved, and they made me feel accepted, and they had their questions and their concerns of what it consisted of, and how is it going to be health-wise, and how is this going to affect me in this way, and they had all valid questions. And I think that is something that's super important, that in our transitions that we do need to remember, is that we are doing this for us, but at the same time, those people that are in our lives, they are human, they are people, and they have feelings. And we have to take into consideration that as much as we want this, and as much as this is going to make us happy, they also do have their concerns, and they also are worried, and they're also going to have to mourn losing somebody in a sense, because the changes are drastic. And as much as we are the same people, we are also very different. And I think that is like something that I want everybody to kind of go into, just remembering that. Um, for me, that was really hard in my transition, and I expected everybody to be super happy for me, right? This is something I wanted, and I was finally able to do it. And because I was able to do it, and because I was so excited about it, I expected everybody else to be excited as well. And I feel like that's not necessarily fair in a sense, um, because reality is it is gonna affect them, and it is an adjustment, and all of those things. And at first, I would I would get upset, um, and I would get upset, if my mom used the wrong pronouns, and I would get really offended, which a lot of people do. Um, but I really had to take a step back and really look at the bigger picture. And I had to really realize that it wasn't that my parents were doing it intentionally to be disrespectful, or that they didn't accept me for who I was, or anything like that. It was just, you have 32 years of a built habit of having a child that was born a female, and all of a sudden you're supposed to switch pronouns, and all of a sudden you're supposed to switch all of these things. And not only that, but you're also going through all these emotions and your feelings, but also trying to be supportive of your kid. And I just didn't understand it. I didn't get it. But I think that was very unfair of me, to feel that way in a sense, only because I can't just take away from the bigger picture, and I can't just take away that these people are also going through something. It was very similar to my wife. She fell in love with a girl, and that's who she knew, and that's who she fell in love with. And again, although I am the same, I am also very, very different, and a lot of things change. And so, there was times that my wife would tell me, um, it's not that I'm not happy for you. I'm happy that you're finally you, and you're being your authentic self. But at the same time, like, she would tell me, I feel guilty in a sense. I feel guilty because I want to be happy for you, but at the same time, like, it also hurts. And it was because she was, in a sense, losing who she fell in love with. And in that moment, in that time, again, I just didn't understand the concept, because for me, it was like, well, I'm still me. There's physical changes and there's these things, but like, I'm still me. And so, in the beginning, I was just very hard-headed about the transition, and I was very much just wanted people to be happy for me. And as much as, like I said, they were happy that I was doing something that was contributing to my well-being and my mental health, and making the right choice for me, and all of these things didn't take away that it was hard for them in the process, right? And so I think that that's super important, to be mindful of those things. And as much as we want people to accept us, and stuff like that, and it's not even that some of them don't accept us, it takes time to process. And I think that that's okay. And I think it would be unfair, or unfair for us to not take that into consideration. So yeah, I mean, we had gotten through that, and I had a hard time in the beginning with pronouns and things like that, but as times came along and I've been more accepting to the process and kind of letting people adjust in their own way and not having expectations and things like that, that has been um, super helpful, not only for others but for me, because it allows them to take this process um, in a timely manner for them. Um, and with that, I've also in turn got the respect that I've always wanted. You know, people are using the correct pronouns and they respect me for who I am. And, you know, if they do mess up on pronouns, there's an apology that comes after, and they let me know that, um, you know, that they're sorry, they didn't mean it, you know, things like that. And I'm understanding about it. And I understand, you know, sometimes it's going to be a slip up, and it just comes off natural to be that way. But eventually, you will get to a point to where it's just natural the other way, right? And um, I think now that we're 3 years into my transition, I'll actually be 4 years into my transition in a couple of months. But um, because of my patience and because of getting this far and stuff like that, it is happening more naturally. And that I feel like is even a better feeling, because now I feel like it's happening naturally. It's not happening because I'm requesting that, or because I'm getting pissed off because somebody's using the wrong pronouns or whatever it may be. It's happening because that's just how they see me. That's who I am, right? I'm Frankie. I'm a male, and that's that. There's no questions asked, which makes me feel even better. Um, so um, yeah, I mean that's one thing that I do want you guys to keep in mind. And so with that being said, you know, there was a lot of challenges in my transition when it came to my relationship, and not just my relationship, but when it came to myself and trying to figure myself out. In the beginning, there's a lot of changes and they happen quickly, and as much as I want to believe and feel like I was mentally prepared, and no matter how much research I did and things that I would study or look into, um, there's just so many things that are unexpected that are hard to navigate through. Like I said, you have a lot of changes and they happen quickly, and one being the hormones. You know, your thought process on some things changes, and your mentality changes. Sometimes the way that you look at things or the way that you view things. There's a lot of physical changes that happen very quickly, some that are very uncomfortable, and some that are make you feel better, but also some that can be frustrating. And I think the biggest part too that comes with all of those changes is that because you're in the middle of your transition and you have all these highs, lows of emotions and feelings, there's a lot of gender dysphoria that plays in place, which is different for everybody, right? For me, before my transition, I wouldn't necessarily say that I was ever super uncomfortable with my body. I would say that I was comfortable, and I didn't mind. But once I really dove into who I was and what made me comfortable and the way that I pictured myself, it was obviously without the physical of a woman. And so, with that, you know, once I started my transition and I started the hormones, I all of a sudden started developing a little bit more gender dysphoria and realizing how much of an uncomfortable feeling I had towards my body and my breasts and things like that. And once I really got into it and thought about it, um, it just made me uncomfortable. You know, uh, it wasn't something that I was uncomfortable with before. Um, but as I got further along and really progressed through things and really thought about me and my physicality of who I am and things like that, it was all without that. And so there were days that were very hard for me to navigate through and to get through. And I think for me, I'm an overthinker. And so, as much as I wanted my transition and as much as I knew that this was for me and this is what I wanted and I was happy about it, I also overthink a lot and try to like second guess myself or try to debate with myself of why and things like that. And emotionally it took a toll on me, because not only that was I battling that within myself, I was also battling that within how things were in the beginning with my relationship or with my family. And I would always ask myself, like, maybe this would have been easier had I not done my transition. Would I be having this problem in my relationship had I not done my transition? Or would I be having this problem with my parents had I not gone through with my transition? And I had to get myself out of that thought process. I had to get myself out of thinking that way, because thinking that way, I just didn't get me anywhere, right? I just went in circles. It wasn't helping me any. It wasn't helping with my emotions with my transition and how I was feeling. Like, I wasn't benefiting myself anyway by thinking that way. And so I really just had to push myself, into being more positive about the whole thing, and really like just tuning into the, as much as this affects other people, I'm doing this for me, and that's what matters. And not that I had to disregard for anybody's feelings or anything like that, but I really had to sit down and just say, hey, at the end of the day, am I going to be happy with myself if I don't do this? Or am I just going to be miserable and not happy and dislike myself and not like what I'm seeing in the mirror, and potentially being even more depressed and potentially, having another suicide attempt or any of those things. And at the end of the day, I had to decide, like, this is for me, and I'm doing this for me, and this is what I would want, and this is what I need to do in order to be here, and this is part of what's going to keep me here and on my journey. And so just don't lose sight of that. I feel like that's very important. And you just got to hold on to that. And with all the changes and things like that, you just have to remember to try to do your research and know really kind of the process of what's going to happen. And like I said, you're never going to be super prepared. I try to prepare myself as much as I could, but that doesn't mean that you're always going to be prepared for what's next to come. There's going to be things that are thrown at you that you were not expecting, and you're going to have to navigate through them. But being understanding of yourself and being understanding of others is really going to help in those situations. And so, there was a lot of things in the beginning, like I said, that I dealt with, like dysphoria, and just my emotions were all over the place, and trying to navigate how I was feeling. And before my transition, I was a very emotional person. I was a big crier, like, for sure, no doubt. I would cry about everything, right? And I'm still I feel like now I'm still very an emotional person, but when it comes to crying or things like that, it takes a lot more, I guess, to get me to that point. But I was a very emotional person, and so it became a point to where it was starting to get frustrating in my transition because my emotions were all over the place, and one minute I was sad and one minute I was happy, and then all of a sudden I would feel anger. And there's just so many things of like high peaks and low peaks that you go through, and days that you're excited to do your shot and other days where you're dreading to do your shot. And still till this day, we're 4 years in, and there's days that I dread my shot, and um, it's not because I'm fearful of it. It's the anxiety that comes with it. There's days that are harder than others. There's days that I'm in my head and I get upset because I feel like it's unfair that I have to do this in order to be who I feel like I should have been born as, or the fact that I have to do shots on a weekly basis make me who I am, and get me the physical results that I need to have and stuff like that. And again, that's just like a mindset thing. That's not how I always think, but like there are days that are harder than others where I am just in my head and I feel like it's unfair and feel all these emotions and these feelings. And it's a hard thing to navigate through. It's not easy. And to know that like that doesn't ever change and that's just consistent and you just have to stick with it and you have to find ways to work through it. It's challenging for everybody. And I think it's important to just know that you're not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. And you just got to roll with the punches and you got to be patient and the changes will come and you're going to figure it out, and if you feel lost, that's okay and that's normal. And you're going to have people there by your side to be able to help you. And for those that don't feel like they have anybody, like I said, just be patient and be kind, and there will be other people that are going to be supportive of you and your transition and love you for you. Um, and so, with all that being said, that's kind of how it was for the beginning of my transition for me, and kind of how I figured out things. Um, and I'm still learning, and it's still a process. But next week's episode, we're actually going to have a guest speaker. The guest speaker is going to be my wife. And the reason why I'm actually bringing her on is because we are talking about the beginning of my transition and kind of how it was. And we're just going to have pinpoints and topics. You people that are out there that do have a partner and kind of want to have an idea of what that process looks like. That will be some insight for you guys, and it's not going to be the same for everybody, but I want you guys to be able to kind of see how it is. And my transition and the things that I've gone through with my family and with my wife, we do communicate about those things, and so I do know how some things made her feel and how it was for her. And so I want you guys to be able to kind of have that context of the story, and I think it's important for you guys to be able to have the context of that, so you can really see, how it was for my wife and what she had to experience and how things changed and how she felt, and times that she felt like she needed to be supportive, but she was also sad and all of that. So next week we'll have my wife on here, and we'll be able to kind of go over some of that information. And for you guys who left comments on my YouTube channel, please just stay tuned. Those are lots of questions that are going to be answered in this podcast, whether it be with me and other friends that are also trans. I want you guys to be able to have answers, but from multiple people that have gone through the same transition, because it is different for everybody, and I want you guys to be able to kind of have difference of opinions and different views of what things may look like for you. And for those of you that aren't going through a transition, I just hope that this information helps you get to know me more and what my journey consisted of, but not also that. Just help you be more educated and being more supportive with trans people and the LGBTQ community. I think it's important to love everybody and accept everybody, and we're all human, and deserve equal rights. And so, with that being said, for you guys, that aren't going through any of this personally, I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for tuning in and for listening, and for trying to, get educated on the LGBTQ community, and also me, and just showing me lots of love. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in to what he grows through, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week.